the unfathomable excellence of humanity. An attempt to envision how far our eyes can open and how far we can administer and control what we see. Not per se control, but administer. Now, the unfathomable excellence, it's kind of very easy when any person right now, whatever you're doing, whatever profession, whatever specific corner of life you have occupied, imagine 1,000 years ahead. How many new ways of things will have been done? Everything the person who's holding back, all the things that you can say are psychology's filter now. You think time cares. That's the unfathomable part. That eventually things will evolve. You know, everybody knows what it's like to be human. But we still don't know what it's like to be part of humanity as if it was only one classification. That means we know how we have an experience of humanity through, you can say, a nationalism, which is a segmentation there. But I'm saying for all human beings to truly feel human, they cannot hold on to specific language. So if you were to wonder 1,000 years from now how the identity of the human being to itself, to its group, to its universal sector will be like, it will be unfathomable, and it will be an unfathomability strived for excellence. You see, whether you go to the edge of chaos, there is a void. Whether you go to the edge of order, there is a void. And so what that void points out is that after the mind has played the conditional game, the mind will move on to the unconditional truth. So I can see how human beings in 2020 are way more advanced than human beings in 1020. And you can say a person in 1020 thinking of multiplayer online video games, it's like that person could not fathom, could not imagine there would have come a day where man had cyberspace identities, a simulated, controllable, artificial existence. What does that mean? That means it's a leap of astonishment. When I think about the excellence of the human species, right now it's not excellent. Right now it's a fathomable inexcellence. That means it's not attempting its own advancement. It's like seeing someone who's a master violinist but who doesn't pick up the violin, or is convinced that they have to play the drums, not realizing the violin is what their hands are waiting for. And so when I saw this wallpaper, I felt it was a perfect fit for the title. I don't know who drew this, but it's epic. It felt to me the advanced human being has a comprehension of energy which will make it that right now we feel in the future there's going to be objective suffering. I feel being an objective being, it will be literally, it wouldn't make a difference. I feel the issues we have of pain, the issues we have of hardship, things getting heavy or tired and throughout the lifetime of the person, In regards to the physicality, the future generations will not feel it. They will have more subjective suffering than objective suffering, as it has been the transition. You go back, human beings physically were suffering because there was less of an individualized mind. As through history we became more individuals, the more we could notice how we are hurting, how we are changing through time. Subjective suffering is a different kind of suffering. Right now, the person tends to have one sense of I thought in one world. Think of it right now that we have person one in world one, P1 in W1. Okay, so P1, W1, one person, one world. Okay, let's create a system like this. P1 um, and W1. So person one in world one. Then we can have one person in W2 in two worlds. Or we can have one world and two people in it. So you see, it's like a scale. Music and multidimensionality of the realm have something very in common. It's like different chords, honestly. What does that mean? That means I wouldn't be surprised if literally there is endless versions of the earth taking place on different chords, imagine. There is an instrumentation at work. I mean, think of how much your body is following its own laws. Like the person thinks about their identity. Imagine you had to consciously think about your heart beating, you breathing, and all the processes of the body. But a lot of that is automated, and we've come to the surface of things. That means it's strange. The tip of the iceberg may feel isolated from everything, but everything, the whole iceberg is allowing the tip to be seen. What I mean by this is that what we see right now, that we're calling human life, is really the tip of an iceberg of a realm that is, as the world becomes multidimensional, the self becomes multidimensional. If the self becomes multidimensional quicker than the world, it will feel like it's in an illusion. Which that's what's happened. We haven't really understood the inner realm, but we have understood the inner self. So we are under the impression that we're just an objective body, and then we have this subjective mind, the outer realm and the inner realm. But the issue is, sorry, we think of it this way: we have the physical body, which is an objective self. Then this physical body is in an object-based world, an objective world. Okay, now we look at the objective self and we say we got one body, two eyes, like just we're this human being, so we have one self, the physical self. Now the physical self, strangely, after all the evolution that matter has gone through, has become a subject to itself. That means we have the subjective self, which another word for that is ego, or the I thought. Okay, so we are treating, this is the difference, this is the whole thing, that it's an authorization of two selves in one world, or two selves in two worlds. That's the whole discussion. That's all of knowledge right there. I'm not joking. That's pretty much our where I feel the edge of our knowledge is going. It is going to the edge of the language threshold. There's going to be an apocalypse. You know what that means? That means think of language being like a commander of all schools of thought, all ideologies, and suddenly the commander gets a change of heart and realizes all the ways it has commanded, other forms, other realities is not in accordance to the true reality now. Because the more non-dual the person becomes, the less you need a world. The less you need a world, the less you are a self. The less you are a self, the more you are indirectly the world. So I wouldn't be surprised that our thoughts are actually another world. That means this may be a savage, not savage, but a very chaotic idea that where everybody goes after this physical transition is where thought lives. I feel it's minds. We're taking turns being collective and individual. We're literally being, we are a collective being. This may sound strange, but recycling itself through different modes of doership. We are an energetic event. We think we're people. Because one may ask, what is thought before energy? Or what is thought? What is before thought? Energy. Energy is another word for God. Literally in the first law of thermodynamics, is literally the same way God is defined, which is weird. That both, that it's as if like it's, I always wondered why Rene Descartes said, here's the thing, it's an archetype. It's not the language. That means it could be potentially that religion tapped into a universal relationship, but the language made it, we are seeing again the tip of the iceberg, which is the cultural framework. Maybe perhaps all these efforts throughout history has been to begin an interaction, a conscious symbiosis with the world soul, or the intelligence of the universal sector, whatever language you like. So as the objective world is noticed, as an objective self is noticed, as a subjective self is noticed, we're up to here. Now the only thing left is a subjective realm. After the subjective realm, we are ready to neither be an object or a subject, and we become the consciousness of the world. That's when a human being no longer is limited to a body. They have become fields. That means imagine right now you're experiencing your body, so look around, like move your head and just look around, you move your body and see you're in a body. Now imagine if you were a whole neighborhood. Now imagine after trillions of years you were a galaxy. Now imagine you even went beyond universal limits. And you ended up at where energy could no longer lie to itself. This is a very strange thing, but for multidimensional purity, you can say manifestation is ignorance. The ignorance of truth is unborn clarity. The advanced human being. That means who knows, inside this suit, there could be, for example, like a, I don't know, little girl. We don't know. It's just like the excellence could be so high. That means it's like it's not like it's something everybody to some degree knows. At least futurists know that technology is accelerating. The way technology is innovating is much quicker, and the reason is because minds are moving faster and faster as time goes forward. The faster minds move, the quicker they see extinction. So we actually, technically, the way we're designed, we are the backup system to extinction. Fear. That means as long as there's fear, there's a response. If we don't fear, or I wouldn't say there's a response, but I would say, like, if we didn't fear our discontinuity, then there would be no reason to hold on to our continuity. The advanced humanity, its direction, think of every human being being like velocity. They have a direction and a speed. Now, the direction of the human mind is multidimensional, and speed is a choice. So, speed is your free will, technically, and the world's potential allows for multiplicity because we get access. Like, it doesn't matter even if our world was multidimensional or not, just the fact that there's one dimension that's observable renders a hidden second dimension. Just because there's one dimension, it's literally the proof that it's a multidimensional situation because we're aware of that dimension. If we had no clue we were here, then it could be one dimension, but we know we are here. The signals received. Matter has noticed its mind. That's a cool point. We're going to get there. There's going to be a point where children are going to literally become gods. When they become gods, the psychology becomes limitless. The influence, the passions will become. So you can say, as a society, I mean, depends on moral dissension. Right now, it seems like the morality of the species is ascending. Like when somebody talks about war, everybody on the planet gets nervous. That's a good sign, you know. Um, that means that we're conscious. We're conscious of not trying to repeat mistakes, you know. Honestly, I feel imagine we had this nanotechnology that we could make endless resources out of thin air. What would we do then? It would just be friendship. It would just be society. If we did not have resource problems, it would be a life of the human mind. But because we have resource problems, labor is involved. And labor is the occupation of the potential of the day. We must strive for the advanced. There is no clearer purpose to the design of the human being than this. A creature of design strives for expression. It yearns for expression. You cannot be a potential and not be expressed. It's like the urge is there. pretty much a species comfortably moving between many dimensions and elevations. We treat our mind like an airplane, and we master its elevations, master its state, no longer life being a belief game. If you think further, like attempt as a human being to wonder how far you can see, you will find the edge of the known. When you reach the edge of what you know, that is where the new is born. And it's update speed. So you can say a system, as it speeds up, its research increases and its updating increases. So what does that mean? That means right now there's a delay in how we're updating as civilizations. But imagine that delay being no longer there. Imagine waking up. What does that mean? That means we're going to be living so fast that maybe 100 years will feel like 1,000 years of lifetime. 1,000 years of different relationships. And even what's really interesting is, what's going to happen if we develop a collective mind? That means, imagine there was a mountain. Suddenly, people woke up on this planet. They saw there was a mountain bigger than Everest. We just hadn't noticed or something. Now, this mountain, imagine people start climbing it, but this is in a future where people's heads are all connected to some digital collectivity, some sort of cloud sphere, or some sort of people have literally their heads are connected to technology. Who knows? We would see the first person to climb this highest mountain, we would all have his experience. We will become a multi-bodied civilization. So as the mind, this is phenomenal, but as the mind expands, it becomes more of what is exposed to it. And guys, I think I just created a word right now. So I was thinking of the mind expanding, and I wrote "mexpand." I think "mexpand" is like Emmy here. I'll write it. "Mexpand" is a good word for the expansion of the mind. The more we see, the more we can be. So if we, in that process of trying to see more, if we can see through each other's eyes, we can be each other. Right now, linguistically, people are trying to see through each other's eyes. And it would be strange. Imagine you could see through everybody's eyes. You would no longer need a body. So we can say collective consciousness could not only be a silent civilization, but could be a civilization where one human being is experiencing every other human being's body. I feel it's like a person could look at inside their house, and you know how a person organizes their house. Imagine now that same rhythm of organization extending outwards. that the person had a responsibility to organize their house, then to organize their, you can say, city, then their nation, then their planet, and then their universal sector. Because after we clean our oceans, we have the atmosphere to clean with all the satellite debris imprisoning us potentially in the future. Imagine satellite debris breaking satellite debris. So in order to experience and advance humanity, we have to first experience our humanity. And so if we can somehow experience an excellent phase of experiencing humanity, a fathomable, let's say, humanity. It doesn't even have to be excellent, but some sort of fathomable humanity, that becomes the starting point to lead towards the unfathomable excellence of the advanced humanity. Because what it is information. Because if information was so instant, it wouldn't need to travel. So technically it would have one source. If imagine one person thought something, everybody had that thought. So it would be like, we would be, rather than 8 billion human beings, imagine all of our heads connected to some computer or something in the future. It becomes like one human being's experience equals 8 billion human beings' experience. Now the issue is where all these 8 billion human experiences will be contained is in, perhaps, I don't know if we have this term, but I'm going to attempt it here, an uber mind. And then we can attribute that to Friedrich Nietzsche. Or we can say, rather than an uber mind, we can call it the cyber universal mind. Maybe that sounds better. The cyber universalis. The halls of the cyber universalis realm. I don't know, guys. I'm just kind of like brainstorming here, but really, it's just, I don't know. It's going to get to a point where we're not just individuals, and we got to figure out how the species is going to go through that phase. It's like if the species wanted to, in a couple chess moves, adjust itself. First thing is, it needs to find a mirror. After finding a mirror, it needs to find the future. After it finds the future, it will know what to do. After it knows what it needs to do, it only needs to find a playful way to do it, and that's it. Because we are treating life as a beginning and a middle, but we are leaving the end out of our minds, not realizing every moment is going through a life cycle. Who knew the moment had a life cycle? Kind of like an infinity symbol, but the center is where that one point is where the infinity is occurring. That means, imagine you saw it as like a roller coaster. Imagine the future, somebody creates an infinity roller coaster, and imagine the center point of the roller coaster is like the actual part of the roller coaster where people sit. Right? So imagine this point at the center of the infinity symbol going through each line like a roller coaster, endlessly coming back to the same point. It's like if we could somehow make children before they finish middle school become excellent designers and medics. That means we teach children health and design. The design will, through, let's say, through this educational reform, will allow the child to study the nature of mind and attention and how all the forms of it are. The health sciences teach the body to the child. Because the body, the human body, is the most immediate thing, the most important thing, and the knowledge for it is not shared at a young age. So the younger the child is, the more it knows about its body, the more it knows about how the mind designs and classifies and shapes things, then the child will be very advanced in the civilization. So we should actually think of kind of maybe focusing on creating advanced minds of human beings. Then these advanced minds will go on advancing their realm. So we just pretty much need a new story um, with an efficient strategy of self-service equating collective service simultaneously. That is the vision. We build a civilization where as the person is simply being themselves, there's endless levels they're advancing. You know what that means? That means there could be a little kid, and in the future there could be advanced AI and the advanced AI surveillance, right? Different kinds of AI surveilling, and every little thing. The child draws a picture, do you know? Like on random picture on a piece of paper, gives the mother puts it on the fridge, the AI scans this picture, sees incredible innovative patterns in it. That's the thing about humanity. We are new whether we whether we know it or not. It's like when I look in the mirror, I see a human being that has never existed before. And it's a huge responsibility being new, because it means you find required to see more than your past. So there are people who they are running away from their past, and there are some people who are sitting in their present, and there are some who are already in the future, and they're just remembering it now. The mind is not a local phenomenon, but the body is. And the location is something that is a subject. So where we are right now that we're calling Earth, it's actually not called anything. The language is an additional dimension. And because we're conscious of physicality, we can notice this. This is why Rene Descartes, when he had to approach this radical doubt, where he was trying to find the isolated thinking subject, he doubted everything pretty much to find truth, and he realized he can't doubt the doubter. This is why he said, I think, therefore I am. But the world mistook how he said, I think. And the word thought is something else. The word thought is the inefficiency, but the thinker, that's literally like, uh, you know, the I thinking. It's like it was a thinking I. It wasn't like the I thinks. The verb and the noun were the same. But because modern society separated the two, we stopped seeing thoughts as dynamic, which was relevant to our experience. It's so fascinating when one notices silence. It's everywhere. And it's the same with stillness. Once you notice these, it's like the hyper attention that sharpens reflexes, whether in your inner realms or outer realms. I think it would be same as everything I'm trying to say about the collective digital mind is the same as there will be. Sorry, guys, this thing was on mute. Thanks for letting me know. I can't bring back time, but I can repeat from the last checkpoint I remember. You know, I'll just go with the rhythm of the talk rather than kind of rewind the talk and listen to it. But it's all collectivity. Pretty much my analysis of where humanity is going is for how long are we going to need this body, and how is the intelligence that this body provides perhaps potentially going to leap into the non-human. Because it's strange, though, it's like only physical reality is where the humanity is there, you know? If we are evolving towards a collective mind that it doesn't matter if it has a body or not, it will be timeless. Oh, yeah, I think I was saying that the individual. Yeah, yeah, I remember what I was saying that wasn't shared, perhaps. It was on mute when I was saying it. I was saying that if there's so many people in the world at tense positions in their mindsets, that if there is one giant setback, it's gonna really discourage everyone. That discouragement means like it's like an energy. It's like the car goes as fast as we put our foot on the pedal. If people are more occupied by the inefficiencies of their individual life, then it becomes a situation where. Yeah, guys, so pretty much if there's a setback, It's going to discourage the civilization. We lose the current momentum we have. Um, and I've totally distracted myself from my own thought. I don't know. There's this urge, it's like you wonder about why, like what the person is living for. After you've had yourself as an answer, and then you had everything you know as an answer, then you wonder if the unknown is part of the answer. That means, let's say, the meaning of life, we think it just needs to equal known variables. We think it's knowledge only. But what if it is known variables plus an unknown variable? It's like we are putting the idea of the soul in the box of a body in an unknown mind. So an unknown mind is looking at a known body being like, am I beyond both of this? But there is a point about speed, the instantaneity of it. I think an advanced humanity can't make mistakes. It just sees additional dimensions. That means rather than seeing a mistake, rather than the person seeing a problem, the person considers the natural state to be no problem, and then the problem becomes its own dimension. So it's like anything, any problem you see, you're comparing it to the void as an observation. You're looking at its individualism. You're looking at how it's dual, what's its relationship to its environment, and then you're looking about what would a sort of infinite movement of it be. What does that mean? That means the same way a person can look at an object. I'm holding a cup in my hand, but if I suddenly, in my inner realms, imagine this cup with a ridiculous speed and force, jumping up into the air, shooting, making a hole in the ceiling, and just flying, going so far into the air that I can't see it anymore just from my hand. Imagine, So it becomes a situation like you can look at an object in your inner realms, it can move in multiple ways. Now the subject can instantly move in multiple ways. So I can say in the inner realms, you are a world moving a self. In the outer realms, you're a self moving in a world. So an advanced humanity would just be aware of these two elevations. We will no longer think of the word, because here's the thing, we can't survey it. We can't say, it's like you can say somebody is strange, but that person could just be doing something new. I'm pretty sure when Christopher Columbus came back and he's like, guys, I found a new place. People were like, get out of here, man. And he's like, I did, and I found a place. And people are like, no, man, you're talking, you know, you're just an average ship who just came back, man. That would be hilarious, no? That would be. Nobody believed Christopher Columbus even after. I remember I saw this when I was looking for these wallpapers. There was one wallpaper where there was this girl in a robotic suit, with only her head out, and she was in a giant robot. And I thought about how fascinating that such like a gentle mind is controlling such a chaotic force. You know? And it was like this perfect balance of the mind being in its own separate control center and the body being the echo of that control, right? Guys, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go into a quote tunnel of Bruce Lee. I just want to see. Bruce Lee says, if you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. Bruce Lee says, I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. That means beyond what we expect from one another, there's more important things. Bruce Lee says, do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. Bruce Lee says, a wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer. Bruce Lee says, absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. This quote, guys, is the secret to mastery, really. Bruce Lee is literally giving an algorithm to the modern world here. Bruce Lee says, mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them. This is the key, guys. Anytime a person does something where there's karmic turbulence, it's just the courage to stay honest to some value in the moment. Do you know? That means there's a difference between someone who gets their hand. Imagine you're a little kid. You put your hand in a cookie jar, and suddenly they see your hands in the cookie jar. And in that moment, there's a kid who takes his hand away, and he's like, "I wasn't getting a cookie." Lies, you know. And then there's a kid who says, "Yeah, I was hungry. I wanted a cookie. What's wrong with it? You know, it's a cookie. It's made to be eaten. You know." Like, do you see the difference? One feared how the moment could continue truly, the other didn't. And that's the thing. That's the brilliance of karma. That if your karma is turbulent, it can also become very smooth. And perhaps that has to do with how you pilot your attention before you have an idea of truth. It's rhythmic. We're rhythmic creatures, I'm telling you. Bruce Lee says, to hell with circumstances, I create opportunities. Bruce Lee says, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the whole point. There was this other person who said like 10,000 hours of doing something gives you mastery. So if you're like technically everybody is a master at eating, at drinking water. We're like masters at basic things we've been doing, you know? Bruce Lee said, and it's not just randomly like kicking 10,000 times. It's 10,000 conscious kicks where you update your style and your technique through every motion. You know, Bruce Lee says real. Excuse me. Bruce Lee says real living is living for others. Bruce Lee says the more we value things, the less we value ourselves. Wow, 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 wow. The more, like Bruce Lee saying, the more you value an object, the less you value yourself as a subject. So your attention is occupied by the object rather than your own character. Bruce Lee says, if you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made up of. Bruce Lee says, showing off is the fool's idea of glory. Bruce Lee says, life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. And that's the point, that it's not per se only in this system about intelligence, it's about will. That means it's like it doesn't matter what tool you have, it's honestly how you use it. That means literally Bruce Lee knew how to use his fist like how to punch. Like this dude probably had punched something so many times that it was instinctual, you know. But here's the thing: the more your mindset gravitates, it's not that it gravitates; it sets the way you receive the world. So how you set in your mind, how you set your mind in motion is as important as how you realize your mind was in motion before you set it. You know. Bruce Lee says the successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. Bruce Lee says knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. Yeah, that means both cases you're bringing from the inner realms into the outer realms. Bruce Lee says, in the middle of chaos lies opportunity. Bruce Lee says, for it is easy to criticize and break down the spirit of others, but to know yourself takes a lifetime. Bruce Lee says, be happy but never satisfied. That's perfect. Be happy but never satisfied. Wow. It's like slogans of of the avatar of modern coolness. Like what? I mean, I knew Bruce Lee had succeeded when I was playing him in a video game. You know, that's when I knew he had a huge influence in culture. Bruce Lee says, always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Do not go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it. Yeah, because you don't know what your DNA has gifted you. You don't know what your gift is. We're not like X-Men that suddenly we have like, you have levitation or like laser beams are shooting out of your eyes, you know? Imagine there's someone like Cyclops from the X-Men, instead of laser beams shooting out, whenever he takes off his glasses, laser beams get sucked into his eye. It's like a laser beam vacuum his eyes. Oh man. That's the thing. Everybody is harboring a gift, right? But it's on a micro level. As you pay attention, as you keep trying to see different dimensions to yourself, suddenly you realize what you are in the middle of it. So will and effort and alert, being alert and aware, like I don't know, like you have to look. Like the eyes are designed to see, the ears are designed to hear. This body is designed to engage the world, interact with it, and become part of its information rhythm, if we can say. Bruce Lee says the key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering. Bruce Lee says you must be shapeless, formless, like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can drip and it can crash. Become like water, my friend. And that's where the quote tunnel ends, guys. Pretty much Bruce Lee telling us to, in this life, be like water that can suddenly be like it can take any shape of the environment, yet it can crash with an individual force. You know, he's pretty much saying live as a free mind. Before that means notice the unconditional before the conditional. I will share some personal, you know, inner realm visions I've had. There has been times, a lot of this was happening, especially, I don't know, in the last couple of years, it's been more. But I could tell you it was like I've had moments where I've closed my eyes, and here's the thing. You know how in your, like, if I tell you to imagine, like, imagine a blue cube glowing in the middle of the air, like wherever you are, if you're sitting in a room or wherever you are, just imagine, visualize a blue cube in front of you glowing, for example, right? So you're visualizing this blue glowing cube and visualize it hovering in there. You see how gravity doesn't act on your imagination? Gravity doesn't act on your imagination. So the blue cube is visualized to be kept hovering in the air. What does that mean? That means the inner realms are not limited to the condition of the outer realms. What does that mean again? It means that we have no limitation of speed. In your inner realms, you can close your eyes and teleport through in literally your attention into all the different memories you've had. You can tap into it. Just close your eyes and remember. Simple. It's something so simple anybody can notice. That the mind has content. And its content is navigated with the free will's response to itself. Think of it this way. You have free will not to control the world, but to control the self that is perceiving the world. And that's the thing. If in one dimension we reach advancement, there's an interconnectivity at work. It echoes. In some of my talks, I said we just need like a couple generations of humanity to consciously live, and they will set forth a domino effect. Then we can all relax. Then the civilization starts, it's like its engines start running. Right now, language is occupying. You know what it is? It's literally like some people have said sport is a distraction from actually what's going on in the world. But I'll tell you this, it's not that. It's that language is a distraction from all the unknown ways that the moment can be interpreted. All the other ways we can know the system. Because that's pretty much it. Every day you wake up, it's like life is like a 360 degrees for me. What does that mean? That means every day I wake up, I'm seeing an angle. I'm seeing an angle, and there's this unchanging self where the world seems to be revolving around. So it's phenomenal that the body of man is technically, the body is in the world of the mind. The mind is the self of the body. And so for me, language is really, aside from being image, aside from it being a method of teleportation, language is a very cool method of teleportation, is where you're bringing the location to the person vocally. So what I'm trying to say is that in your inner realms, if you visualize the blue cube, you realize you could visualize anything, right? You could visualize even an iced cappuccino floating in air, right? So the person can visualize anything. Just the instantaneity of you can visualize anything, then what are you? So you look at the speed of your attention. You look at even, you can say the speed of your thoughts, but the word thought is very archaic. I would say you notice the contents of this unknown viewer of the known moment. You know, like pretty much the contents of the moment. And you know, sometimes when I think about a problem, I think about how would I feel if I never had it? Or if I had already solved the problem, what would it feel like? This is something that I don't know from where I noticed, but I realized that anything the person wants in this life, desires, if the desire they feel they deserve it, then it's worth going after. Because if you don't feel you deserve something, deep down, your mind doesn't want to touch it. So you lose it. You can close your eyes and notice that even though they are closed, they can still see. But that sight is your mind. The memories, the imagination, all the abstraction, all the sounds that we have given to this activity of multidimensional experience, like we're on the verge, you know? That means it's like I'm a materialist until I wonder about who am I in the mirror? Just it's like it's you're a materialist until you suddenly notice, wait a minute, how am I defining materiality? You require the immaterial. You require the void to see the world full. So it's kind of like we're treating the cosmos as this emptiness, and suddenly, bang, like something occurred. We're not considering that before we created the notion of time, there was a reality, you know? What if we, just like how we're comfortable with being in one dimension right now in a physical space-time continuum, imagine you right now had the same comfort being multidimensional. Imagine right now there were other versions of you in other dimensions. I'm just saying the mind can fathom it, and because the future is going more closer to interconnectivity of the inner realms, I feel that will be the case. So this is the very fascinating kind of life cycle of, not life cycle, but evolutionary cycle of the soul. And this is a very bold statement because I usually don't put these two, not that I don't usually put them together, but it's very complex to see a correlation between the two. Sorry, guys. My attention went elsewhere. I was pretty much trying to think that if the intersection of evolution and the soul is inconceivable, that means a static analysis is a mistake. That means movement is the soul of the moment. The evolution of attention beyond the concept of evolution. Yeah, guys, it's inconceivable. We can't speak. We can't speak about it after some point. Because sight has a sort of processing speed, and if the phenomena goes beyond the processing speed, if we evolve faster than we can be conscious of, we technically can't be a conscious evolutionary creature. So we can say if we evolve too fast, we go towards the unconscious. If we evolve too slow, we go towards the unconscious. As a species, the collective idea. I think an unfathomable excellence would be, I'm just constantly trying to fathom how could we live as individuals without making mistakes and still being advanced natural human beings. I think we have to just make our mistakes in our inner realms. I think we have to try as hard as we can to change, to make the outer realm system that it makes it hard for people to actually make a mistake. Not through force, not Machiavellian fear. I mean, just, I don't know. I think the best thing an advanced civilization can do is just point to the future and start walking slowly towards it. And those who notice it, also move towards it. Something that's more, it's like the coolest thing beyond the person is what the person can do. So, anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I feel if the direction becomes multidimensional, if we have speed, that would technically mean we're experiencing different speeds in different dimensions simultaneously. So the only way we can maintain multidimensional existence by actually not being in any dimension at all. A lot of people look for the stairway to heaven or the gates to the unknown. But what if your eyes were the portal between heaven and earth? That hell was a state of mind. Heaven is the potential, and earth is how it's happening. Matsuo Basho, he says, actually, not Matsuo Basho. Let me just read a bunch of quotes from Moriya Oshiba. Moriya Oshiba is the founder of Aikido. Moriya. Yeah, Moriya Oshiba. Guys, he has these quotes on like witnessing the soul of heaven and earth. It's next level. I'm going to read it for you. So I'm going to go into another quote tunnel before I end off. Moriya Oshiba says, a good stance and posture reflect a proper state of mind. All life is a manifestation of the spirit, the manifestation of love. Moriya Oshiba says, create each day anew. Moriya Oshiba says, do not look upon this world with fear and loathing. Bravely face whatever the gods offer. Mario Shiba says failure is the key to success. Each mistake teaches us something. Maria says everyone has a spirit that can be refined, a body that can be trained in some manner, a suitable path to follow. You're here to realize your inner divinity and manifest your innate enlightenment. Moria says always keep your mind as bright and clear as the vast sky, the great ocean, and the highest peak, empty of all thoughts. Always keep your body filled with light and heat. Fill yourself with the power of wisdom and enlightenment. Morio Shiba says all the principles of heaven and earth are living inside you. Life itself is truth, and this will never change. Everything in heaven and earth breathes. Breath is the thread that ties creation together. Morio Shiva says the divine is not something high above us. It is in heaven, it is in earth, it is inside us. Morio Shiva says opponents confront us continually, but actually there is no opponent there. Enter deeply into an attack and neutralize it as you draw that misdirected force into your own sphere. Morio Shiva says the heart of a human being is no different from the soul of heaven and earth. In your practice, always keep in your thoughts the interaction of heaven and earth, water and fire, yin and yang. Morio Shiba says there are no contests in the art of peace. A true warrior is invincible because he or she contests with nothing. Defeat means to defeat the mind of contention that we harbor within. Morio Shiba says one does not need buildings, money, power, or status to practice the art of peace. Heaven is right where you're standing, and that is the place to train. Morio Shiba says progress comes to those who train and train. Reliance on secret techniques will get you nowhere. Morio Shiba says it is necessary to develop a strategy that utilizes all the physical conditions and elements that are directly at hand. The best strategy relies upon an unlimited set of responses. Morio Shiba says life is growth. If we stop growing technically and spiritually, we're as good as dead. Morio Shiba says failure is the key to success. Each mistake teaches us something. Morio Shiba says when life is victorious, there is birth. When it is thwarted, there is death. A warrior is always engaged in a life and death struggle for peace. Morio Shiba says, when an opponent comes forward, move in and greet him. If he wants to pull back, send him on his way. Morio Shiba says, your spirit is the true shield. Morio Shiba says, those who are possessed by nothing possess everything. The actualization in the inner realm, where people will realize their minds are no stranger to their origin. I'm just going to read a bit more quotes from Morio Shiba. There's like 6 left. Morio Shiba says, as soon as you concern yourself with good and bad of your fellows, you create an opening in your heart for maliciousness to enter. Testing, competing with, and criticizing others weakens and defeats you. Wow. So when you try to break someone, you actually break yourself. Morio Shiba says internally. Morio Shiba says, the art of peace I practice has room for reach of the world's 8 million gods, and I cooperate with them all. The God of peace is very great and enjoins all that is divine and enlightened in every land. The God of peace. Where Aries has to move from the Airbnb. I'm joking. Morio Shiba says, each and every master, regardless of the era of the place, heard the call and attained harmony with heaven and earth. There are many paths leading to the top of Mount Fuji, but there's only one summit, love. Morio Shiba says, in extreme situations, the entire universe becomes our foe. At such critical times, unity of mind and technique is essential. Do not let your heart waver. Yeah, that means whether it's an emergency or something, you gotta just there's an intensity. That means your technique has to do with how your awareness has allowed your mind to see yourself already do the thing in the moment. Morio Shiba says mankind's role, or let me actually read this quote first. Study how water flows in a valley stream, smoothly and freely between the rocks. Also learn from holy books and wise people. Everything, even mountains, rivers, plants, and trees, should be your teacher. And last but not least, Morio Shiba says mankind's role is to fulfill his heaven-sent purpose through a sincere heart that is in harmony with all creation and loves all things. And if you loved here's the point of love. When you love something, your attention is on it. Do you know? Your attention is literally trying to being it, right? So a sincere effort where creation is not against you and you have loved the future advancement. Do you know that means it's the person, they could look at their past and be like realize they haven't loved themselves in the past. They look at be in the present moment and be like they still don't love themselves, but in the future, in the future there is a self that you can attain. Not attain per se, but is waiting for you. Your own advancement, your own mind's duty, responsibility. It's your mind's responsibility. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I've shared a Discord link at the top of the chat section. I'll be there for some time. Whoever's interested, they're welcome to join. Much blessings and us. Sorry guys, I totally forgot to talk about the subtitle. Alright, I'd mentioned here something about skill is central. The whole point of skill being the focus is that we stop judging and competing over abstract identity, over self-imposed impressionism. We become a civilization that's like, all right, if there was an alien invasion tomorrow, would we be prepared? Do we have advanced human beings on Earth? That means it's like the game has changed. The mind has opened, has literally began its work here. The body has really, for a while, started its work, but the mind, its responsibility, its task is survival. So pretty much every homework assignment for children in advanced civilization is, how do you advance civilization? Just think about it. That means children are raised in the honor of attempting to solve the global, to shift the global inefficiency towards the global efficiency, towards a universal efficiency. That means every fight that we're having, our future generations are looking at us and laughing. Focus on your skill. If you're a person who, let's say you're someone who has some sort of ideological turbulence in your life, right? So when you're in ideological turbulence, focus on skill. What does that mean? If you're a carpenter and you're angry, go build a table or something, you know? You know? If you're a sculptor who's angry, sculpt yourself so you reflect on your anger, you know? But the point is, don't forget a dimension of skill in your life, and that technically has to do with the dynamism of your moment. Aside from the ideological costume games, there is a living event going on. And the mystery of this living event, everybody requires to hunter-gather from their inner realms, write journals or whatever, and share it. Yeah, think says, what about the wallpaper art that you chose for this talk, Mr. Within? Well, one thing about it is people can help find the artist. But I'll tell you that it's the reason I chose it is because what I saw inside the suit wasn't a human. It was like the pure source of information. For me right now, everything I'm saying, it has to do with form. I'm telling you, it's pretty much like how you watch the architecture of buildings. It's the same with knowledge in regards to how subjects are received in your inner realms. For me, language has an architecture, geometry, even speech. And if the person becomes conscious of that geometry, they'll notice that it can be everywhere. Even snowflakes have geometry in them. It's a mode of existence. The geometrical dimension is like, I don't know, I think it's a sphere. I think it's the it's the other side of the coin of all this three-dimensional earth we see. It's just like a pure geometrical dimension, you know. And one last thing, guys, I'm going to share. There's a character I developed in my science fiction novel called The Messenger of Giants. It's still unpublished, but still in the works. In it, there's a character. Sorry, it's not in this book, but it's there is a clue from it in that book. But there is this. I think it's the book from. It's the second book. What do I call it? Lord Mistos, the Geometrical Messenger. Lord Mistos is a character where I realized there were different archetypes for angels, archangels. You know? That means there was the archangel of like the messenger. Then there was the warrior, da 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 da. These different beams of dimensions of the realm, right? So I thought of, what if there's a geometry archangel? Nobody has created an archangel of geometry. And so in my science fiction, there's a scene where there's this very divine kid named Farda. And the whole book, in the second book is a bit vague, I can't tell you. I have different opinions. I'm still deciding between different versions of it, like skeletal versions of it. But like, I'll tell you this, the whole point of it is Farda is this kid that he finds himself in certain moments right before he dies. Do you know, he's pretty much a child with no karma. So nothing happens to him. And what happens is Farda finds himself in a moment where something chaotic is happening, and right there the moment pauses. Everything in the dimension, in the world, becomes pure geometric, and out of the geometry of how everything has become geometric, Lord Mistos steps out as this being that he looks like he has certain fragments of humanhood, and the rest is like vibrating geometry, like very like fast moving geometry. Do you know? So he's pretty much an angel looking, but instead of light, it's geometry, everything. You know? And so I thought that that's one thing to point out, that in your skill, you're looking actually at the design of your own effort. And as you master your craft, pretty much it means that you are first the mind is overpowering the free will. As you train, you come to know your mind, and you come to also know your free will. As you familiarize yourself with your free will, you can discern. As you can discern, you can hover through various landscapes and notice many things. Like you can go through various obstacles. Think of it this way. A person may not know they're a multidimensional being, but we know at least we're in one dimension. And in this dimension, what we have done is we have fragmented things, broken things. Excuse me. That if we are alive through change, we can never die. The romance of eons comes to an end when the truth never got lost. The unfathomable excellence of the advanced humanity awaits us all. Thanks for listening, everyone. Much blessings.